The massive crystalline chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian floor, its walls rising so high they disappeared into swirling clouds of bioluminescent gases. Representatives from 47 different species sat in carefully arranged sections, each area designed to accommodate their unique physiological needs. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime, converting thousands of different languages, chemical signals, and electromagnetic frequencies into something resembling coherent communication. Ambassador Zara Chen stood at the edge of Earth's designated section, watching the elaborate ceremony unfold before her. The section itself told a story that made her jaw clench with suppressed anger. While other species enjoyed elevated platforms, specialized atmospheric controls, and seating areas that could house hundreds of delegates, Earth's space consisted of a simple metal bench tucked away in the farthest corner of the chamber. The placement was no accident. In the 15 years since first contact, humanity had been systematically relegated to the position of galactic observers rather than participants. The Galactic Council had made their position clear from the beginning. Humans were newcomers, primitives who had barely managed to achieve faster-than-light travel through what the other species considered crude and dangerous methods. The fact that humanity had independently developed jump drive technology using principles that violated several established laws of physics had been dismissed as luck rather than innovation. When human scientists tried to explain their discoveries, the Council's response had been polite indifference followed by subtle suggestions that Earth should focus on learning from their more advanced neighbors. Today marked the quinquennial review, where species could petition for advancement in Council status. Earth had submitted the same request for the past 3 review cycles, each time presenting evidence of technological advancement, cultural development, and peaceful intentions. Each time, the response had been the same carefully worded rejection citing humanity's aggressive tendencies and technological instability. Zara watched as the Kethvar delegation presented their latest achievements. The insectoid species had developed new forms of bioarchitecture that could adapt to changing environmental conditions. Their presentation included holographic displays of living buildings that grew and modified themselves based on the needs of their inhabitants. The Council responded with enthusiastic approval, immediately granting the Kethvar additional resource allocation rights and expanded territorial claims. The pattern continued throughout the morning. The aquatic Mordun showcased their advances in underwater terraforming technology. The silicon-based Vexti demonstrated new methods of crystalline data storage that could preserve information for millions of years. Each presentation received careful consideration, detailed questioning, and ultimately some form of advancement or recognition. When Earth's turn finally arrived, Zara approached the central speaking platform with the same confidence she had maintained through 3 previous rejections. She activated her presentation display, showing detailed schematics of humanity's latest technological developments. The quantum resonance engines that had reduced interstellar travel time by 60%, medical nanotechnology that had eliminated most hereditary diseases, fusion reactors that had made clean energy abundant and affordable across all human colonies. Honored Council members, Zara began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement system. Humanity respectfully requests advancement to Class 2 status within the Galactic Council. Our technological progress over the past 5 years has exceeded all projected benchmarks. Our peaceful expansion into 12 new star systems has been conducted with full environmental impact assessments and complete avoidance of systems showing signs of existing life. The response was predictably tepid. Council Speaker Thelmos, a tall reptilian being with scales that shifted color based on his emotional state, barely looked up from his data pad. Ambassador Chen, while humanity's efforts are noteworthy, the Council remains concerned about your species' historical tendencies toward conflict resolution through violence. Additionally, your technological development patterns continue to show dangerous disregard for established safety protocols. Zara had heard these objections before, but this time something felt different. The usual polite attention seemed forced, almost nervous. Several delegates were exchanging glances that suggested they were communicating through private channels. The Vortai ambassador, a crystalline being whose thoughts typically broadcast as visible light patterns, was deliberately keeping his mental emissions dim and controlled. With respect, Council Speaker, could you provide specific examples of these dangerous technological patterns? Zara asked, maintaining diplomatic protocol while pushing for concrete details. Our submitted reports include complete safety data and testing protocols for all new developments. Thelmos's scales shifted to a deep orange, indicating irritation. The Council's concerns are based on comprehensive analysis of human behavior patterns and technological trajectory projections. Your species has a documented history of weaponizing discoveries originally intended for peaceful purposes. The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely unfair. Humanity's path to the stars had been driven by military necessity as much as scientific curiosity. The same technologies that powered their fastest ships had originated from weapons research. The medical nanotechnology they were so proud of had been developed initially to create more effective combat stimulants for soldiers in Earth's final territorial wars. But every species in the Council had similar histories. The Kethvar had once been a warrior culture that had conquered 14 different worlds before developing their current pacifist philosophy. The Mordan had practiced systematic genocide against land-dwelling species on their home planet for thousands of years. Even the seemingly peaceful Vextai had created their crystalline data storage technology, initially to preserve the consciousness of their enemies as eternal prisoners. Speaker Thelmos, Zara continued, every species represented in this council has overcome violent histories to achieve their current status. Humanity has been at peace for over 30 years. Our colonial expansion has been conducted according to all established council protocols. What specific requirements must we meet to demonstrate our readiness for advancement? The question hung in the air for several long moments. Zara noticed that many delegates were now openly staring at the human section, but their expressions were harder to read than usual. The usual mixture of condescension and mild curiosity had been replaced by something that looked almost like apprehension. Council Speaker Thelmos consulted briefly with several other senior members before responding. The Council has determined that humanity requires additional time to develop cultural maturity. Your species shows promising technological advancement, but lacks the philosophical sophistication necessary for expanded Council participation. We recommend continued observation status with the possibility of review in another 5 years. The dismissal was more curt than previous rejections, lacking the usual elaborate explanations and specific recommendations for improvement. Zara felt a familiar mixture of frustration and determination as she returned to Earth's designated section. But underneath those expected emotions was something new: suspicion. As the formal proceedings continued with other administrative matters, Zara began paying attention to the undercurrents of council politics that usually remained hidden beneath layers of diplomatic protocol. The subtle communication patterns between different species delegations. The way certain topics were introduced and then quickly redirected. The unusual number of private consultations happening during what should have been routine administrative discussions. The most telling moment came when the Council addressed resource allocation for the coming year. Traditional patterns would have certain species receiving increased allocations based on their expanded territories and growing populations. Instead, there seemed to be a systematic effort to redistribute resources away from species with the most advanced technological capabilities and toward those with larger military forces. During a brief recess, Zara approached Ambassador Crixtai of the Zephyrian delegation. The Zephyrians were one of the few species that maintained genuinely neutral relationships with most council members, making them valuable sources of unofficial information. Crixtai resembled a cross between a praying mantis and a flowering plant, with delicate fronds that changed color to indicate mood and social status. Ambassador Crixtai, Zara said quietly, I noticed some unusual voting patterns during today's resource allocation discussions. Is there something happening that Earth should be aware of? Crixtai's fronds shifted to a pale blue, indicating caution mixed with sympathy. Ambassador Chen, there are currents flowing through the council that are difficult to navigate safely. Many species are reconsidering traditional alliance structures. Because of external threats, Zara pressed, has something changed in the unexplored regions? The question seemed to make Crixtai genuinely uncomfortable. His fronds darkened to purple, a color that typically indicated fear or severe anxiety. Not external threats, Ambassador. Internal developments. Perhaps it would be wise for humanity to focus on strengthening your own defensive capabilities rather than seeking council advancement at this time. Before Zara could ask for clarification, Crixtai excused himself and moved quickly toward his delegation section. The conversation left her with more questions than answers, but also with a growing certainty that something significant was happening beneath the surface of council politics. The afternoon session focused on territorial boundary disputes and trade agreement modifications. Zara noticed that several species were quietly negotiating defense pacts that hadn't been on the official agenda. The Malter Confederation was seeking military cooperation agreements with 3 different species. The crystalline hegemony was requesting permission to establish research stations in strategically important systems near major shipping lanes. Most disturbing was the pattern of species requesting information about human military capabilities. The requests were always indirect, buried within broader discussions of galactic security or technological sharing initiatives. But the focus was unmistakable. Everyone wanted to know exactly how dangerous humanity might be in a military conflict. As the day's proceedings finally concluded, Zara found herself walking slowly back to her quarters in the diplomatic sector of the station. The hallways here were designed to accommodate multiple species, with varying gravity zones, atmospheric compositions, and lighting levels. She had always found the diversity fascinating, but tonight it felt overwhelming, even threatening. Her quarters were in the human section, a modest area that housed Earth's small diplomatic staff. The entire human presence on the station consisted of fewer than 20 people: diplomats, cultural attachés, trade representatives, and security personnel. Compared to the vast delegations maintained by major council species, it was a reminder of humanity's peripheral status in galactic politics. Commander Sarah Martinez, head of diplomatic security, was waiting in Zara's quarters when she arrived. Martinez was a compact woman with graying hair and the kind of steady competence that came from decades of military service. She had been watching council proceedings from the security observation deck, monitoring for potential threats to the human delegation. "Ambassador," Martinez said without preamble, "we need to talk. I've been monitoring communication patterns between various delegations, and there's definitely something happening that we're not being told about." Zara settled into her chair and activated the room's privacy shields before responding. "I had the same impression. Several delegates seemed nervous, almost fearful, and the questions about human military capabilities were hardly subtle." Martinez pulled up a holographic display showing communication traffic patterns throughout the station. "Look at this. Normal diplomatic chatter runs at about 40% of total communication bandwidth. Today it spiked to over 90%, with most of the increase happening in encrypted channels between military attachés rather than primary diplomatic staff." The pattern was clear even to Zara's untrained eye. Instead of the usual random distribution of communications throughout the station, there were distinct clusters of activity centered around specific species delegations. More significantly, there was a notable absence of communication with the human section that went beyond the usual diplomatic isolation. "They're coordinating something," Zara concluded. "But what, and why the secrecy?" "That's what worries me," Martinez replied. "If this was about normal alliance building or trade negotiations, there wouldn't be any need to exclude us specifically. We're not significant enough to affect most council decisions one way or another, but if they're actively working to keep information away from us." The implications hung unspoken between them. Either the council was planning something that directly affected humanity, or they had discovered something about humanity that was making them reconsider Earth's status in galactic politics. Zara stood and walked to the viewport that looked out over the station's central hub. Thousands of beings from dozens of different species moved through the carefully designed spaces, conducting business, forming alliances, and shaping the future of galactic civilization. For 15 years, humanity had been trying to find its place in this vast community. Now it seemed that place might be more precarious than they had ever imagined. "Commander, I want you to put together a complete analysis of today's communication patterns. Cross-reference them with voting records from the past 5 years. Look for any species that have changed their positions on human-related issues." She turned back to Martinez. "And quietly reach out to our contacts in the neutral delegations. See if anyone is willing to talk about what's really happening here." Martinez nodded and headed for the door. Before leaving, she paused. "Ambassador, there's one more thing. I've been reviewing the security briefings from Earth Command. Our intelligence services have been picking up unusual activity in several border regions." Ships moving through human space without proper identification, sensor sweeps of our colonies, that sort of thing. Whose ships? That's just it. The signatures don't match any known council species, but the technology is definitely familiar. It's like someone is using modified versions of known designs. After Martinez left, Zara remained at the viewport for a long time, watching the ebb and flow of galactic politics in the spaces below. Somewhere in the complex web of relationships and rivalries that defined council politics, humanity had become a factor that required careful management. The question was whether they were seen as a threat to be contained or a resource to be controlled. Either way, it was becoming clear that Earth's position in the galactic community was about to change dramatically. The only question was whether humanity would have any say in determining what that change would look like. 3 days after the council session, Ambassador Zara Chen received an encrypted message that changed everything. The communication came through unofficial channels, routed through 7 different relay stations to obscure its origin. When she finally decoded the message in the security of her private quarters, she found herself staring at information that made her blood run cold. The message was from Dr. Elena Vasquez, humanity's leading expert on xenoarchaeology and council history. Dr. Vasquez was currently stationed on the research world of Kepler 442b, where she led a joint scientific expedition studying the ruins of an ancient civilization. The message was brief but urgent. Ambassador, you need to see what we've discovered. Cannot transmit details through normal channels. Request immediate consultation via secure quantum link. The quantum communication link was established within 6 hours, the encrypted channel creating a bubble of privacy that even the most advanced council monitoring systems couldn't penetrate. Dr. Vasquez appeared as a hologram in Zara's quarters, her usually composed demeanor replaced by barely controlled excitement and concern. Zara, what I'm about to show you explains everything that's been happening at the council, Vasquez began without preamble. We've been excavating a site here that dates back approximately 50,000 years, long before any current council species achieved spaceflight. The civilization that built these structures had technology that makes our current achievements look primitive. Vasquez activated a data display showing architectural structures that defied conventional understanding of engineering. Massive crystalline towers that seemed to grow directly from the planet's crust, transportation networks that operated without any visible power source, and manufacturing facilities that could apparently manipulate matter at the atomic level. That's impressive, Elena, but how does this relate to current council politics? Zara asked, though she suspected she already knew where this conversation was heading. Because we've found records, Zara. Complete historical archives that detail this civilization's interaction with the species that eventually formed the Galactic Council. And more importantly, we've found references to a species that matches humanity in every significant detail. The next display showed translation matrices that had taken weeks to decode. The ancient language was unlike anything in current galactic databases, but the mathematical and scientific concepts it described were universally understandable. More significantly, the historical accounts described contact with a species that had developed faster-than-light travel using principles that violated established physics, showed remarkable adaptability to different environmental conditions, and demonstrated a disturbing tendency to find military applications for peaceful technologies. They called them the inheritor species, Vasquez continued. According to these records, this ancient civilization encountered humans approximately 45,000 years ago. The contact was brief but significant enough that they devoted considerable resources to studying human development patterns and technological trajectory. Zara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the environmental controls in her quarters. Elena, are you saying that the council species know about this? That they've known all along that humanity has had previous contact with advanced galactic civilizations? Not just previous contact, Zara. According to these records, the ancient civilization made specific predictions about humanity's eventual development. They called humans the inheritor species because they believed we would eventually surpass all other galactic civilizations and become the dominant force in this region of space. The implications were staggering. If the council species had access to similar information, it would explain their systematic efforts to limit human advancement and their growing nervousness about Earth's technological progress. It would also explain the unusual alliance building and defense pact negotiations that had been happening in the shadows of official council proceedings. There's more, Vasquez said, activating another display. The ancient civilization didn't just observe human development, they actively influenced it. Some of our most significant technological breakthroughs weren't independent discoveries. They were the result of carefully placed archaeological finds that contained just enough information to push our development in specific directions. The display showed a timeline that made Zara's head spin. The discovery of quantum mechanics principles in Egyptian ruins that had been dismissed as coincidental. The Mesopotamian tablets that contained mathematical formulas crucial to developing fusion technology. The cave paintings in France that showed star charts accurate enough to guide the first human interstellar missions. Every major leap in human technology can be traced back to some form of ancient knowledge that we've discovered at exactly the right moment in our development, Vasquez explained. It's as if someone has been guiding our progress for thousands of years, ensuring that we would reach a specific level of capability at a predetermined time. And that time is now, Zara said, understanding finally clicking into place. According to the projections in these archives, yes. The ancient civilization predicted that humanity would achieve galactic-scale technological capability approximately 50,000 years after first contact. By their calculations, we're entering the final phase of whatever process they set in motion. Zara walked to her viewport, looking out at the massive space station that represented the pinnacle of current galactic civilization. Everything she was seeing in a new light. The Council's systematic efforts to limit human advancement weren't just prejudice or fear of change. They were a desperate attempt to prevent the fulfillment of an ancient prediction. Elena, have you found any indication of what the ancient civilization expected humanity to become? What made them so certain we would surpass other species? That's the most disturbing part, Vasquez replied. According to their analysis, humanity has several unique characteristics that make us fundamentally different from other spacefaring species. Most galactic civilizations develop technology gradually, building on previous discoveries in logical progression. We make intuitive leaps that bypass normal developmental stages. Vasquez brought up comparative analysis charts showing technological development patterns for different species. Most showed steady, predictable advancement curves. Humanity's curve looked like a series of dramatic spikes separated by relatively stable periods. They also noted our unusual adaptability, she continued. Most species require centuries or millennia to adapt to new environmental conditions. Humans can adjust to different planets, different social structures, even different technological paradigms within a single generation. From the ancient civilization's perspective, this makes us virtually unstoppable once we reach a certain level of technological capability. But why would that be threatening to current council species? There's plenty of space in the galaxy for everyone. Because the ancient civilization also predicted that human expansion would fundamentally change the nature of galactic civilization. They believed our approach to technology and social organization would make traditional power structures obsolete. The species that currently dominate the Council would find themselves struggling to remain relevant. The communication link flickered as security protocols kicked in, reminding them that even quantum encryption had limits. Vasquez quickly transmitted a data package containing copies of the most crucial archaeological findings before the connection was terminated. Alone in her quarters, Zara began reviewing the transmitted data in detail. The ancient archives painted a picture of humanity that was both flattering and terrifying. The inheritor species was described as having unlimited potential for both creation and destruction, capable of achievements that would reshape galactic civilization or mistakes that could destroy it entirely. More specifically, the archives contained detailed analyses of human psychological and social patterns. The ancient civilization had been particularly fascinated by humanity's capacity for rapid social evolution. While other species required thousands of years to change their fundamental approaches to governance, economics, or social organization, humans could completely restructure their civilizations within decades. This adaptability was viewed as humanity's greatest strength and its most dangerous characteristic. The archives suggested that humans were capable of solving problems that had stymied other species for millennia, but they were also capable of creating entirely new categories of problems that no one else had ever imagined. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication from Commander Martinez. Zara accepted the connection, finding Martinez in the Diplomatic Security Center surrounded by data displays and monitoring equipment. "Ambassador, we've got a developing situation," Martinez began immediately. 3 hours ago, ships from 12 different council species began moving towards strategic positions around human space. They're maintaining the appearance of routine patrol rotations, but the coordination is too precise to be coincidental. Martinez brought up a tactical display showing human space surrounded by a gradually tightening net of alien vessels. The ships weren't approaching human colonies directly, but they were positioning themselves to control all major shipping lanes and communication routes between Earth and its outlying settlements. "How many ships are we talking about, Commander?" "Over 300 vessels, including several Dreadnought-class ships that haven't been deployed outside Council space in over 20 years. Whatever they're planning, they want to be absolutely certain they have overwhelming superiority." Zara studied the tactical display, her mind racing through the implications of Vasquez's discoveries. If the Council species knew about the ancient predictions regarding humanity, they might have decided that preventing human advancement was worth the risk of military action. "Commander, I need you to establish secure communication with Earth Command immediately. Use the emergency protocols and make sure the transmission is routed through our most secure channels." Within an hour, Zara found herself in virtual conference with Admiral Sarah Chen, the head of Earth's Space Defense Force, and Director Michael Harrison, the head of Earth's Intelligence Services. Both looked grim as she briefed them on the archaeological discoveries and the current tactical situation. "Admiral, what are our current defensive capabilities if the Council decides to take military action?" Zara asked. Admiral Chen consulted data from her tactical staff before responding. "We have approximately 40 ships capable of interstellar combat, plus another 100 vessels that could be converted to military use with some preparation time. Against 300 dedicated warships, our chances would be limited." "However," Director Harrison interjected, "our intelligence suggests that many Council species aren't fully committed to whatever action is being planned. Several of our contacts in neutral delegations have indicated that there's significant debate within the Council about how to handle the human situation." "What kind of debate?" Zara asked. "Some species favor immediate military action to prevent human technological advancement. Others prefer diplomatic solutions, possibly including offering humanity full Council membership in exchange for accepting certain technological limitations. A few species are actually advocating for full partnership with humanity, believing that cooperation would be more beneficial than confrontation." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "Ambassador, we need to know what humanity's official response should be. Are we preparing for military action, diplomatic negotiation, or something else entirely?" The question hung in the air as Zara considered their options. Earth had spent 15 years trying to find its place in galactic civilization through peaceful means, accepting relegation to observer status while working gradually toward acceptance. Now it appeared that the rest of the galaxy had been viewing humanity not as a minor species seeking membership, but as a potential threat that required careful management. "Admiral Director, I need 12 hours to develop a comprehensive response strategy," Zara finally said. "In the meantime, I want our ships moved to defensive positions around our most important colonies. Don't take any aggressive action, but make it clear that we're aware of the situation and prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." After the conference ended, Zara spent the next several hours reviewing everything they knew about current Council politics in light of the archaeological discoveries. Patterns that had seemed like random prejudice now revealed themselves as coordinated policy decisions. The systematic limitations on human technological sharing, the restrictions on colonial expansion, the careful monitoring of human military development, all of it made sense if viewed as efforts to delay the fulfillment of an ancient prediction. But the most important realization was that the Council's actions were based on incomplete information. The archaeological records suggested that humanity's development had been guided by an ancient civilization with specific goals in mind. If that civilization had intended for humans to eventually dominate galactic space, they had also built in safeguards to ensure that domination would be beneficial rather than destructive. The key was in the term Inheritor species. Humans weren't destined to conquer galactic civilization. They were intended to inherit it when other species had reached the limits of their development. The ancient civilization had apparently designed a system where humanity would serve as a catalyst for the next stage of galactic evolution. The question was whether Zara could convince the Council of this interpretation before their fear led them to take actions that would be destructive for everyone involved. The emergency council session was called at dawn, station time. Ambassador Zara Chen stood before the assembled delegates knowing that this might be humanity's last chance to avoid a war that could destroy everything both species had worked to build. The massive chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 47 species waited to hear what the humans would say about the situation that had been developing in space around their colonies. Council Speaker Thelmos looked older than Zara remembered, his usually vibrant scales now a dull gray that indicated stress and exhaustion. The past 72 hours had apparently been difficult for everyone involved. Behind him, the emergency session display showed real-time tactical information that made the situation crystal clear. Over 400 ships from various council species now surrounded human space in what could charitably be called a defensive perimeter, but looked suspiciously like preparation for invasion. Ambassador Chen, Thelmos began, the Council has become aware of certain developments that require immediate discussion. Recent discoveries have brought to light information that significantly changes our understanding of humanity's place in galactic civilization. Zara had expected this opening. Commander Martinez's intelligence network had reported increased chatter about the archaeological findings over the past 48 hours. Someone within the research community had leaked information about Dr. Vasquez's discoveries, and that information was now spreading through council channels like wildfire. Speaker Thelmos, I assume you're referring to the archaeological discoveries on Kepler 442b, Zara replied calmly. I can confirm that Earth is aware of these findings and their potential implications for galactic politics. A ripple of conversation swept through the chamber. Several delegates seemed surprised that humanity already knew about discoveries that many council species had learned about only hours earlier. The reaction told Zara that the information leak had been recent and incomplete, which might work to her advantage. Given the nature of these discoveries, Thelmos continued, the Council has serious concerns about humanity's intentions regarding galactic civilization. The predictions contained in these ancient archives suggest that human expansion poses a fundamental threat to the stability of our current order. Zara had prepared for this moment, but actually hearing the accusation still sent a chill through her. 15 years of careful diplomacy, and it had all come down to fear of an ancient prediction that none of them fully understood. Speaker Thelmos, with respect, I believe the Council may be misinterpreting the significance of these archaeological findings, Zara said, activating her presentation display. Earth has conducted a comprehensive analysis of the available data, and our conclusions suggest a very different interpretation of the ancient civilization's intentions. The display showed Dr. Vasquez's most recent analysis, enhanced with additional research that Earth's xenoarchaeological teams had been conducting in secret for months. What Zara didn't mention was that humanity had been finding similar ruins on other worlds for years, carefully concealing their discoveries to avoid exactly this kind of panic. The term inheritor species doesn't refer to conquest or domination, Zara explained. According to our analysis, it refers to a natural progression in galactic civilization. The ancient civilization appears to have designed a system where different species would contribute their unique strengths to an eventual synthesis that would benefit everyone. She brought up comparative data showing technological and social development patterns across multiple species. Every council species has reached natural limits in their development. The Kethvar have perfected bioarchitecture but struggle with energy management. The Mordan excel in environmental adaptation but have difficulty with large-scale social organization. The Vextai have mastered information storage, but lack creativity in applying their knowledge. The chamber grew quiet as delegates recognized the accuracy of these assessments. Each species had indeed reached plateaus in their development, areas where progress had essentially stopped despite centuries of effort. Humanity's role as the inheritor species appears to be that of a catalyst, Zara continued. Our technological approach allows us to find solutions that combine different species' strengths in ways that none of us could achieve independently. The ancient civilization didn't design us to replace galactic civilization. They designed us to help it evolve to the next level. Ambassador Crixtai of the Zephyrians raised a question. Ambassador Chen, if this interpretation is correct, why has humanity concealed the extent of your archaeological discoveries? Our intelligence suggests that you have found similar sites on multiple worlds. Zara had expected this question and was prepared with a response that was both truthful and strategic. Because we were afraid of exactly this reaction, Ambassador Crixtai. Every discovery we made suggested that humanity was destined to play a major role in galactic politics. We knew that sharing this information prematurely would create fear and suspicion rather than cooperation. And what makes you believe the time is now appropriate for sharing this information? Asked Ambassador Yulmoth of the Crimson Alliance, a warrior species known for their direct approach to problems. Because the alternative is a war that will destroy everything our species have accomplished together, Zara replied bluntly. The current military buildup around human space suggests that some council members have already decided that humanity poses an unacceptable threat. We believe it's time for complete transparency so that all species can make informed decisions about the future. The response created a stir throughout the chamber. Several delegates began communicating through private channels, while others demanded immediate clarification about the military situation. Council Speaker Thelmos called for order, but the damage was done. The carefully maintained fiction that the ship movements were routine patrols had been shattered. Ambassador Chen, Thelmos said when order was finally restored, the Council is prepared to offer humanity a compromise. We propose immediate advancement to Class 2 status in exchange for accepting certain limitations on technological development and military expansion. The offer was better than anything humanity had received in 15 years of negotiations, but Zara recognized it for what it was. A gilded cage designed to prevent humans from fulfilling their potential while allowing council species to feel secure. What specific limitations would be involved? Zara asked. Restrictions on military ship construction, mandatory technology sharing for all major innovations, limits on colonial expansion, and council oversight of human research programs, Thelmos replied. These measures would ensure that humanity's development remains beneficial to galactic civilization as a whole. The terms were essentially surrender disguised as partnership. Humanity would be allowed to exist as a council species, but only under conditions that would prevent them from ever becoming the catalyst for change that the ancient civilization had apparently intended. Speaker Thelmos, I appreciate the Council's offer, but I must respectfully decline, Zara said, knowing that her response might trigger the military action that everyone was trying to avoid. Humanity cannot accept limitations that would prevent us from fulfilling our role in galactic civilization. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions and demands in dozens of different languages, while translation systems struggled to keep up. Several species began recalling their ambassadors, a traditional precursor to military action. The carefully maintained order of council politics was collapsing in real time. Through the chaos, Zara noticed something that gave her hope. Not all species were reacting with hostility. The Zephyrians remained calm, their fronds displaying colors that indicated thoughtful consideration rather than fear or anger. The aquatic hegemony delegation was engaging in what appeared to be intense debate among themselves. Even some of the traditional military powers seemed uncertain about the appropriate response. When order was finally restored, it was Ambassador Crixtai who spoke first. Speaker Thelmos, the Zephyrian Collective requests additional time to consider all available information before committing to any course of action. We believe that hasty decisions made from fear serve no one's interests. Several other species immediately seconded the request, creating a temporary coalition of moderate voices that provided an alternative to immediate military action. Zara realized that this might be humanity's opportunity to demonstrate their value as partners rather than threats. Speaker Thelmos, if the Council is willing to postpone any military action, humanity is prepared to offer a practical demonstration of our interpretation of the ancient records, Zara said. We propose a joint technological development project that would showcase how human capabilities can enhance rather than replace existing Council achievements. What kind of project? Asked Ambassador Velter of the Silicon Confederation. Mordun delegation has been working for decades on terraforming technology for worlds with extreme environmental conditions, Zara replied. The Vextai have developed crystalline data storage that could preserve the results for millions of years. The Kethvar have bioarchitecture that could adapt to changing planetary conditions. Human quantum resonance technology could tie all of these innovations together into a terraforming system that would be far more effective than any single species could create. The proposal caught several delegates off guard. Instead of defending humanity's right to independent development, Zara was offering to demonstrate how human advancement could directly benefit other species. Ambassador Torval of the Mordun delegation was the first to respond. Such a project would require sharing sensitive technological information between species. The security implications would be significant. Which is why it would be conducted under full council oversight, Zara replied. Complete transparency, shared benefits, and collaborative development that proves humanity's commitment to galactic civilization rather than galactic dominance. The chamber fell silent as delegates considered the implications. A successful collaboration would prove Zara's interpretation of the ancient records. A failure would confirm the fears that had led to the current crisis. Council Speaker Thelmos consulted with senior members before responding. The Council requires additional time to consider this proposal. We will recess for 6 hours to allow for proper consultation with our respective governments. As the session ended, Zara noticed that the pattern of private communications had changed. Instead of the nervous coordination she had observed earlier, delegates were now engaging in serious discussions about the technical feasibility of the proposed collaboration. The conversation had shifted from whether humanity posed a threat to whether they might actually offer the solution to problems that had been frustrating Council species for generations. Commander Martinez approached as Zara left the speaking platform. Ambassador, we're getting reports that some of the ships surrounding our space are beginning to pull back to defensive rather than attack positions. Your proposal seems to have bought us some breathing room. The question is whether we can use that breathing room effectively, Zara replied. We need to contact Dr. Vasquez immediately. If we're going to prove that humanity can serve as a catalyst for galactic advancement, we need to make sure our proposed demonstration will actually work. As they walked toward the human quarters, Zara felt the weight of responsibility that came with representing not just humanity's current interests, but its potential future role in galactic civilization. The ancient civilization had apparently spent thousands of years guiding human development toward this moment. Now it was up to her to ensure that their investment in humanity's potential would prove beneficial for everyone involved. The next 6 hours would determine whether humanity would finally find its place in galactic civilization, or whether fear of change would lead to a war that could set back the progress of all species by centuries. The Joint Technological Demonstration Project began 6 months after the Emergency Council session, conducted on the Neutral Research Station of Haven Point in the Kepler system. Ambassador Zara Chen stood in the primary observation deck watching teams from 5 different species work together on what had become the most ambitious collaborative project in galactic history. The terraforming system they were developing would either prove that humanity could serve as a catalyst for galactic advancement or demonstrate that their technological approach was incompatible with established council methods. Dr. Alina Vasquez had been transferred from her archaeological research to serve as humanity's lead scientist on the project. Her experience with ancient technologies had proven invaluable in bridging the gap between human innovation and alien scientific traditions. Standing beside her were lead researchers from each participating species. Dr. Morthak of the Mordun Aquatic Terraformers, crystalline engineer Vexnal from the Vextai Data Specialists, bioarchitect Kethmea from the Kethvar, and theoretical physicist Yulson from the Silicon Confederation. The quantum resonance field is showing stable harmonics across all 5 technological interfaces, Dr. Vasquez reported to the assembled observers. Human quantum manipulation technology is successfully integrating with Mordun environmental control systems, Vextai data processing, Kethvar bioadaptive structures, and Silicon Confederation materials science. The results were unprecedented. Each species had contributed their greatest technological achievements to the project, and human quantum resonance technology was serving as a unifying framework that allowed all the different systems to work together seamlessly. The terraforming array they had created could theoretically transform a dead world into a thriving biosphere in decades rather than millennia. But the technical success was only part of what made the project significant. The collaboration itself had revealed something that surprised everyone involved. Working together had pushed each species beyond the limitations that had defined their development for centuries. Dr. Morthak activated a display showing the environmental control system. Human quantum manipulation has allowed us to achieve precise atmospheric control that we never thought possible. We can now regulate planetary conditions at the molecular level rather than just adjusting broad environmental parameters. Crystalline engineer Vexnell added, "The integration with human technology has expanded our data processing capabilities by orders of magnitude. We can now model complex planetary systems in real time instead of requiring years of calculation for each simulation." Bioarchitect Kethmea was equally enthusiastic. Human quantum fields allow our biostructures to adapt and evolve far more rapidly than natural selection would normally permit. We can now create living buildings that grow and change within days instead of decades. The pattern was consistent across all participating species. Human technology wasn't replacing their achievements. It was amplifying them to levels that none of them had imagined possible. The ancient civilization's prediction that humans would serve as a catalyst for galactic advancement was proving accurate in ways that even the archaeological records hadn't fully anticipated. Council Speaker Thelmos, who had been observing the demonstration along with representatives from all major council species, stepped forward to address the assembled researchers. "This collaboration has exceeded our most optimistic projections. The technological achievements alone justify the resources invested in this project. But the implications go far beyond technology," added Ambassador Crixtai of the Zephyrians. "This project has demonstrated that interspecies collaboration can achieve results that none of us could reach independently. It suggests a new model for galactic civilization based on synthesis rather than competition." Zara had been waiting for this moment. The technical demonstration had been successful beyond everyone's expectations, but the real test was whether the Council would be willing to embrace the broader implications of what they had accomplished. "Speaker Thelmos, the success of this project supports humanity's interpretation of the ancient records," Zara said. "We believe the inheritor species designation refers to our role as facilitators of collaboration rather than dominators of galactic space. We propose expanding this cooperative model to address other challenges that have been frustrating Council species for generations." The proposal created immediate interest. For decades, the Council had been struggling with problems that seemed to have no solutions. Energy distribution across vast interstellar distances, communication delays that made real-time governance of galactic civilization almost impossible, resource allocation disputes that had been festering for centuries without resolution. Ambassador Yulmoth of the Crimson Alliance, representing one of the most militaristic species in the Council, raised a concern that many others shared. "Ambassador Chen, while this collaboration has been successful, it has also demonstrated that human technology is advancing at a rate that other species cannot match. How can we be certain that humanity won't eventually use this technological superiority for aggressive purposes?" The question went to the heart of the fears that had created the current crisis. Even species that were impressed by the collaborative project remained concerned about humanity's long-term intentions. "Ambassador Yulmoth, I believe the answer lies in the structure of the collaboration itself," Zara replied. "Human quantum resonance technology only achieves its full potential when integrated with technologies from other species. We cannot dominate galactic civilization because our greatest achievements require cooperation with others." Dr. Vasquez activated a technical display that illustrated this point. Human quantum fields are inherently unstable when used in isolation. They require the stabilizing influence of other technologies to maintain coherence over extended periods. The Mordan environmental controls provide grounding, the Vextai data systems provide precision, the Kethvar biostructures provide adaptability. Without these contributions, human technology becomes unpredictable and potentially dangerous. The implications were profound. The ancient civilization hadn't just designed humans to serve as catalysts for galactic advancement. They had ensured that this advancement would require cooperation rather than conquest. This built-in dependency explains why the ancient civilization was confident that the inheritor species would benefit galactic civilization rather than destroying it, Dr. Vasquez continued. We literally cannot achieve our full potential without working with others. Crystalline engineer Vexnell added another crucial observation. The collaborative process has also revealed that each species has unique contributions that cannot be replicated by others. Human quantum manipulation cannot replace modern environmental expertise or Vexti data processing. It can only enhance them. The room fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications of what they were hearing. The fear that had driven the military buildup around human space was based on the assumption that humanity would eventually make other species obsolete. Instead, the demonstration had proven that human advancement actually increased the value of other species' contributions. Council Speaker Thelmos consulted with his advisors before addressing the assembled group. The Council requires time to consider the full implications of these discoveries. However, the success of this collaboration has clearly demonstrated that our previous approach to human-council relations was based on incomplete understanding. What does that mean for humanity's status in the Council? Zara asked. The Council is prepared to offer humanity immediate advancement to Class 1 status, with full voting rights and unrestricted development privileges, Thelmos replied. In exchange, we request that humanity commit to expanding the collaborative model demonstrated in this project to other areas of galactic civilization. The offer was everything humanity had been seeking for 15 years, but Zara recognized that it came with responsibilities that went far beyond what anyone had originally imagined. Accepting Class 1 status would make humanity responsible for helping to solve problems that had been challenging the galaxy's greatest civilizations for millennia. Speaker Thelmos, humanity accepts the Council's offer, Zara replied. We also propose the creation of a new institution, the Collaborative Development Initiative, where species can pool their resources and expertise to address challenges that exceed any single civilization's capabilities. The proposal created immediate enthusiasm among many delegates. The success of the terraforming project had demonstrated the potential benefits of systematic interspecies collaboration, and several species were already identifying problems they wanted to address through similar cooperative efforts. Ambassador Torval of the Mordun suggested establishing collaborative research stations throughout Council space where mixed teams could work on specific challenges. Ambassador Velter of the Silicon Confederation proposed creating a shared technology database that would allow species to build on each other's discoveries. Even the traditionally isolationist aquatic hegemony expressed interest in participating in projects related to oceanic world development. Within hours, the conversation had shifted from crisis management to planning for an expanded model of galactic civilization. The fear that had driven species to consider military action against humanity was being replaced by excitement about the possibilities that cooperation could create. But Zara knew that the real work was just beginning. Implementing systematic collaboration across dozens of different species would require overcoming centuries of competition, mistrust, and cultural differences. The terraforming project had succeeded partly because all participants shared a common scientific background that made communication relatively straightforward. Expanding collaboration to areas like governance, economics, and social policy would be far more challenging. Dr. Vasquez approached as the formal session concluded. Ambassador, we've received priority communications from Earth. Our xenoarchaeological teams have made additional discoveries that put the ancient civilization's intentions in an even clearer perspective. What kind of discoveries? Instructions, Zara, detailed guidance for how the collaborative model should be implemented across galactic civilization. The ancient civilization didn't just predict that humans would serve as catalysts for advancement. They provided a blueprint for how that process should work. The discovery meant that humanity's role in galactic civilization was even more precisely defined than anyone had realized. The ancient civilization had spent millennia designing a system where different species would eventually work together to achieve levels of advancement that none could reach independently. Humans were the keystone species that made the entire system possible, but they were part of a larger design rather than its ultimate beneficiaries. As Zara looked out at the diverse group of beings who were now eagerly discussing joint projects that would reshape galactic civilization, she realized that humanity had finally found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or subordinates, but as partners in a collaborative endeavor that promised to benefit everyone involved. The ancient civilization's long-term investment in human development was about to pay dividends for the entire galaxy. 5 years after the establishment of the Collaborative Development Initiative, Ambassador Zara Chen stood in the Central Command Center of Nexus Station, humanity's first major contribution to galactic infrastructure. The massive facility served as headquarters for joint research projects involving dozens of species, but it represented something far more significant than technological achievement. It was proof that the galaxy's ancient plan for cooperative advancement was working exactly as intended. The station itself showcased the power of interspecies collaboration. Modern environmental systems maintained perfect living conditions for beings from radically different worlds. Vexti data networks allowed instantaneous communication across the galaxy. Kethvar bioarchitecture provided living spaces that adapted automatically to each inhabitant's needs. And human quantum resonance technology tied everything together into a seamless whole that functioned more efficiently than anything any single species could have created. Ambassador, we're receiving status reports from all 17 active projects, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, who now served as Director of Collaborative Research. The energy distribution network is ahead of schedule, the communication relay system is exceeding all performance projections, and the resource allocation algorithm is already reducing conflicts between member species. Each project represented a problem that had been frustrating galactic civilization for centuries. The energy distribution network would eventually provide clean, abundant power to every inhabited system. The communication relay system would reduce interstellar message delays from weeks to minutes. The resource allocation algorithm would end the territorial disputes that had been a constant source of tension between species. But the most significant achievement was something that couldn't be measured in technological terms. The collaborative process had fundamentally changed how species related to each other. Competition and suspicion were being replaced by genuine partnership and mutual respect. The most interesting development is how quickly new collaborative combinations are forming, Dr. Vasquez continued. Species that had no previous contact are now working together on projects that benefit both civilizations. The ancient blueprint appears to have anticipated even these secondary partnerships. Zara reviewed the latest archaeological reports on her personal display. Dr. Vasquez's teams had now discovered ancient sites on over 40 worlds, each containing additional pieces of the long-term plan that had guided galactic development for millennia. The scope of the Ancient Civilizations project was staggering. They had carefully orchestrated the development of dozens of species over thousands of years, ensuring that each would develop unique capabilities that would eventually combine into a galactic civilization far more advanced than any single species could achieve. Elena, have we found any indication of what happened to the ancient civilization themselves? Zara asked. With technology advanced enough to guide galactic development across millennia, they should still be around somewhere. That's the most fascinating part, Dr. Vasquez replied. According to the most recent discoveries, they didn't disappear. They evolved. The collaborative model they designed for us is apparently the same process they used to transcend physical existence entirely. They became something that exists in the quantum fields that connect all matter and energy. The implications were mind-boggling. The ancient civilization hadn't just designed a system for advancing galactic technology and social organization. They had created a pathway for conscious beings to evolve beyond the limitations of physical existence. Are you saying that the ultimate goal of the collaborative process is to help all species achieve the same kind of transcendence? Zara asked. According to the archaeological evidence, yes, but not immediately and not through force. The process takes millions of years and requires voluntary participation by all involved species. The ancient civilization appears to have designed a system where physical beings can gradually evolve toward higher forms of consciousness while maintaining their individual identity and freedom of choice. A priority alert interrupted their conversation. Commander Sarah Martinez appeared on the communication display from Earth Security Coordination Center, her expression showing a mixture of excitement and concern. "Ambassador, we've got a situation developing that you need to know about immediately," Martinez began. "Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive energy signatures from the galactic core. The patterns match theoretical projections for advanced quantum manipulation, but at scales we can barely comprehend." Zara felt a chill of apprehension. "Commander, are we looking at some kind of threat?" "Unknown, Ambassador, but the energy signatures appeared exactly 48 hours after our latest collaborative project came online. The timing suggests that our activities may have triggered some kind of response from something." The communication display expanded to show tactical data from monitoring stations throughout human space. The energy signatures were unlike anything in existing databases, but they showed clear signs of artificial origin. Something was manipulating quantum fields at galactic scales, and it was doing so in response to the collaborative projects that humanity and its partners had been developing. "Elena, does the archaeological record mention anything about this kind of response to collaborative development?" Zara asked. Dr. Vasquez consulted her research database before responding. "There are references to what they call emergence protocols that activate when collaborative development reaches specific milestones. But the translations are incomplete, and we don't fully understand what these protocols are designed to accomplish." Before Zara could respond, the station's communication array activated automatically, receiving a transmission from the direction of the galactic core. The signal was unlike anything in the databases of any known species, but somehow it was perfectly comprehensible to everyone who heard it. "Greetings, inheritor species and collaborative partners," the transmission began. "Your development has progressed to the threshold where direct communication becomes possible. We are the architects of the system you have been implementing. We are pleased to observe that the collaborative model has achieved the intended results." The communication center fell silent as the implications sank in. They were receiving a direct message from the ancient civilization that had been guiding galactic development for millennia. But the beings who sent the message were no longer bound by the physical limitations that constrained normal species. "Your species have successfully demonstrated the capacity for genuine cooperation and mutual advancement," the transmission continued. "You have proven that conscious beings can overcome the competitive instincts that typically limit civilizational development. The next phase of your evolution is now available, but it requires unanimous consent from all participating species." "What kind of next phase?" Zara asked aloud, though she wasn't certain the ancient beings could hear her response. "Integration with the quantum consciousness field that connects all matter and energy," came the immediate reply, confirming that the communication was indeed interactive. "Your species would retain individual identity while gaining access to collective knowledge and capabilities that transcend physical limitations. The process is voluntary and reversible, but it represents the natural culmination of collaborative development." The offer was simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. The ancient civilization was proposing to help all galactic species evolve beyond physical existence into something resembling pure consciousness. It would be the ultimate advancement, but it would also fundamentally change the nature of what it meant to be alive. "We require time to consider this proposition and consult with our respective civilizations," Zara replied. "This decision affects every conscious being in the galaxy." "Time is available in unlimited quantities from our perspective," the ancient beings responded. "We have been preparing this opportunity for 50,000 years. Another few centuries or millennia will not affect the eventual outcome. We will maintain this communication channel until you are ready to proceed." The transmission ended, leaving everyone in the command center trying to process what they had just experienced. Humanity had spent 15 years trying to find its place in galactic civilization. Now they were being offered the chance to help guide all galactic species toward a form of existence that no one had ever imagined possible. "Elena, I need complete analysis of everything we know about this transcendence process," Zara said. "Commander Martinez, alert all member species that we need an emergency council session to address this development." Over the following months, the galaxy engaged in the most comprehensive debate in its recorded history. Some species were eager to pursue transcendence, viewing it as the logical culmination of their technological and social development. Others were reluctant to abandon physical existence for something they couldn't fully understand. A few were actively opposed, arguing that consciousness without physical form couldn't truly be considered life. But gradually, a consensus began to emerge. The collaborative model had already demonstrated that species could achieve far more working together than they could independently. The prospect of joining a collective consciousness that preserved individual identity while sharing knowledge and capabilities was appealing to most civilizations. More importantly, the ancient beings made it clear that the decision didn't have to be permanent. Species could choose to return to physical existence at any time, taking with them the knowledge and perspectives they had gained from the transcendent state. Humanity found itself in the unique position of serving as mediators in the galactic discussion. Their role as catalysts for collaboration made them natural facilitators for the debate about transcendence. They weren't pushing other species toward any particular decision, but they were helping everyone understand the options and implications. The beautiful thing about this choice, Zara said during one of the council sessions, is that it represents the same principle that has made our collaborative projects successful. No species is being forced to participate, but everyone benefits when more beings contribute their unique perspectives and capabilities to the collective effort. 18 months after the first contact with the transcendent beings, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to accept the offer of evolutionary advancement. The decision would be implemented gradually, with individual species choosing their own timeline for transcendence. Some elected to proceed immediately, while others preferred to maintain physical existence for several more generations while they prepared for the transition. Humanity chose a middle path, with some individuals volunteering for immediate transcendence, while others remained physical to help guide species that were still developing collaborative capabilities. Earth would serve as a bridge between physical and transcendent existence, ensuring that the evolutionary process remained voluntary and beneficial for everyone involved. Standing on the observation deck of Nexus Station, watching ships from dozens of species arrive to begin their transition to transcendent existence, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had started as a minor species seeking acceptance in galactic civilization. They had discovered their role as catalysts for collaborative advancement. And now they were helping to guide all conscious beings toward a form of existence that promised unlimited potential for growth and achievement. The ancient civilization's 50,000-year plan was finally coming to fruition, and it was more magnificent than anyone had dared to imagine. The universe was about to become home to a collective consciousness that combined the unique perspectives and capabilities of dozens of species while preserving the individual identity and freedom of choice that made consciousness meaningful. Humanity had found its place in galactic civilization by helping everyone else find theirs. And that was exactly what the inheritor species had been designed to accomplish.